Hey, everybody. I am Dr. Andy Roark, and this is the Uncharted Podcast. Guys, we got a good one today. We've got a letter from a veterinary technician who is not getting along with their new manager. It is not happy times at this clinic, and they tell us about it in the mailbag. And this episode starts off with a visit to Camp Tough Love. And so that's how this episode gets going. This is a great episode, I think, for anyone who is really irritated at their direct boss. And you don't have to be a technician with your practice manager. I think we talk a lot about what a frustration with your direct boss situation looks like. And hopefully we give some good advice and headspace on kind of how to look at it and how to think about it. So anyway, guys, I like this episode a lot. Let's get into it.
And now, the Uncharted Podcast.
It's me, Dr. Andy Roark, and the one and only Stephanie. I hate everything about you, Goss. I don't hate everything about you. This is very much inspired by the mailbag today. Like, yes.
I mean,
do you remember that song? The I Hate Everything About You song? Anyway, it was a thing when I was in high school.
I love that. And also, I feel like if you hated everything about me, we would not have survived as many years together.
No. I don't think I hate anything about you. You are a good egg, and I am glad that you're my friend.
How's it going, Andy Roark?
It's good. It's wild, man. Everything is just flying by the end of the year. I have this reminder in my calendar that comes up. I set it to come up every year, and I add to it every year. And it's like the week before Thanksgiving. And it's just a reminder for me. Thanksgiving is not a vacation for you. You are facilitating this for other people. And like you should go and look for opportunities to help. And we get together with a big family and there's kids everywhere and it's things like that. And it's like, when I go and feel like, yay, Thanksgiving, I'm on vacation, it's not going to go well for me. And when I go, you know what? I'm going to go make sure everybody else has a good time. I end up having a very nice time. And also I feel good about how things go. And my brother, who's got young kids, gets a break and like stuff like that. But I just continue to add things to remember year after year.
This time of year is good in so many ways, and it's also exceptionally stressful. Like Q4 to me is just like, there's just so much.
I remember being not just a kid, like a young adult. And I just baffled me that people would not just have nothing but fun, positive feelings about the end of the year. And I'm like,
if you get it, it's overwhelming. Being overwhelmed, we got a very long mailbag. And so I'm going to just caveat this up front and say that there is a lot to this that I am not going to share. A, in the interest of time, and also B, because I want to make sure that we protect our writers. But I'm going to paraphrase the beginning and kind of set us up. So we have a writer who is a longtime technician, and they're in a bigger general practice. They have more than 5 doctors, and they're feeling like they're watching everything kind of crumble from the middle in terms of leadership. So they had a prior practice manager who was quite experienced, and that person has left the practice and they retired. They didn't leave under bad terms or anything. So instead of trying to look outside the practice owners chose to promote someone from within the team that doesn't seem to have the skill set or anywhere close to the skill set that the team maybe feels like is needed to run the practice. And the bigger thing that was interesting to me is that they expressed that it doesn't seem like this person actually even wants the job, but there's feelings from the team, like the practice owners think that this person is wonderful and they adore her. And one of the biggest problems is that the team, including this technician, feel like this person is not held accountable for anything. And so it feels like there are longtime technicians in the practice who are trying to work together to keep things running and make things feel smooth and good, but they're doing it from their perspective without any guidance or support, any admin time or time off the floor to do it. So they're working full-time jobs and then feeling like they're working on top of that. And so they're struggling with feeling like this new manager is misrepresenting what they're saying and feedback to the practice owners. and that they are avoiding conflict and accountability and hard conversations. And the end result is that they feel like everybody is super frustrated. There's feelings and symptoms of burnout in the team. The team loves the medicine, but this person's perspective is that the team feels like the owners of the practice have kind of abandoned them and said, well, this is a person we think can lead the practice, so if you don't like it, too bad, is really the sense that I got from the email. And so they said, I feel like I'm hanging on because I love my coworkers, I love my team, I love our patients and our clients, but they're wondering if staying in the profession is sustainable. And it's interesting to me because when I read how they ended it, I was just like, oh, we're in very all or nothing thinking here.
Yes.
I think that ultimately this is a question about what do you do when you're being led by someone who maybe isn't prepared to lead for whatever reason. And so I thought that this would be a good one for us to talk through.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think this is definitely worth our time. So from a headspace standpoint, there's a lot of feeling in this, and there was a lot of very specific points of frustration that were listed. And so I want to help this person. And I think from a headspace standpoint, I need to start at Camp Tough Love. Dustin, let's play the theme song.
Well, it's Camp Tough Love, like drinking dishes. See the creation of determination. Get ready for a safe talk. You might need a stress walk. That's what we do at Camp Tough Love.
Camp Tough Love.
This is my favorite. I love when we have visits to Camp Tough Love.
We're going to Camp Tough Love. All right, look. And this is, I think everybody should hear this, but here's old man Andy who's seen some
things.
Get
off my lawn.
I'm just going to say, all right, the expression that if you wake up in the morning and you meet a jerk, then you probably met a jerk. And if you wake up in the morning and everyone you meet is a jerk, you're probably a jerk. I love that expression. There's something else that I have seen after years and years and years of people asking me for advice about their practice and their boss and things like that. And it's something along the lines that I haven't made it kitschy yet, but if you can't stand 10 things about somebody, then they're probably not the problem. And what happens is I'll get people, and everybody's got something they're not, that could be improved. And I don't want to discount that. But when someone comes up to me and says, this person did this, and they also did this, and they don't do this well, and we complained about this, and all of these sorts of things. At some point I go, it doesn't feel to me like this person is either the issue or they're not the entire issue. So I say that from a point of Camp Tough Love is if you're looking at someone and you're like, there are 15 things that this person's doing that make me angry, I would say, you're triggered. At this point, we've gone to a place where you're having an emotional reaction probably to this person, which is not healthy and it's not helpful. And also, when you go and ask for advice, and this is the Camp Tough Love part, when you go to advice and you say, how do I work with somebody who's got 15 things that I don't like? No one's going to be able to help you. My advice is we need to start out by taking a step back here. And honestly, whenever I see this many complaints about somebody, we need to do some de-escalation here. We need to, I think, maybe do some breathing exercises. We need to try to set aside any sort of emotional reaction that we're having and really try to say, what is it about myself that is reacting to this person? And again, I don't know anything other than what was in the meal bag, but that's just been a thing that I've seen again and again, is when someone does 15 things that make you angry, my advice is to step back and say, why am I having this reaction to this person? What am I not handling with this? And that doesn't mean that the writer is wrong. It doesn't mean that there's not things that are not going well. But the first thing is to say, look, we've got to get the you part of this equation figured out before we're going to be able to do anything with the boss part of this equation.
I love that. There's no way to have any amount of objectivity or assumption of good intent when you're that level of upset or frustrated or insert emotion here, right? Because how it comes out intentionally and or unintentionally, because a lot of time it's unintentional, how it comes across is very attacking and negative and blaming all of the things on someone else. And the reality is that you can't be productive with that mind frame. And so I love that that's where you started.
I think that's a big part of it. Camp Tough Love, still living here for a second. Imperfect bosses are a part of life. And again, like we get this all the time. And I think we do a good job about assuming good intent and preaching that. And again, but I want to circle back to that. Is everyone has an imperfect boss, and everyone is an imperfect boss when they get there. It's just, we're all flawed. And so I just think that that's an important part of it. Really, in the end of it all, when you have an imperfect boss, as we all do, you got three options. You can adapt, you can compromise, or you can leave. That's it. I feel like sometimes people write to us as if we're going to call the boss. And you know,
or just like magically like talk about this solution that is like going to just solve the problems.
Yeah, that's not how humans work. Basically, you can adapt, you can compromise, or you can leave. And so when we've got a boss that's causing us problems, adaptation might be, it's trying to figure out who this person is and how do they work. Part of adapting might be going up the chain and saying, hey, I'm having significant problems with this person. I'm not saying you should suffer in silence. That is sort of adapting, is to say, I understand what this is. I see how I'm being treated. I see how this is going to happen. I'm going to go and I'm willing to flex, but I'm also going to ask for help from above. And I'm also going to give feedback about the experience that I'm having. And that's adaptation, right? It's not sitting still and just suffering in silence, but it's how I'm going to change my behavior in order to deal with this. A lot of times adaptation is to say, okay, there was an example in the letter that I really liked where the person said, you know, we've got a number of good technicians and we go to her and we ask her what to do or how to do something. And she tells us that we should figure it out for ourselves. And I'm like, well, what do you? Do you go figure it out for yourself? Like, you know, you could
be angry about that, or you could be like, well, this is an opportunity to do what we want to do and how we want to do it.
Exactly right. That's exactly, and seriously, but I thought that was a great call out. Again, I'm not there and I don't mean to be dismissive of what she's saying, but seriously, hey, you guys figure it out. That is a very valid leadership response, which I think online people would say, that's horrible. And I would say, no, you're like, you guys are grown-ups and you're experienced and you're well-trained. And like, you know, but I'll also say to bosses, if you tell me that Stephanie Goss and I can figure it out, we're going to go figure it out. And it might not be the way that you would figure it out, but we're going to go and we're going to figure it out in a way that makes us happy and that we will accomplish the objective. And we will also do it in the way that is convenient for us and that makes sense for us and that lets us enjoy our work. And so if you're okay with that, then I think we've got a good thing here. And so anyway, there's definitely nuance in this and how it goes. But so anyway, so part of adapting is when the person says, part of adapting is when, you know, we say, well, the previous manager told us exactly what to do and the new manager tells us we need to figure it out for ourselves. Can you adapt to a manager who doesn't tell you what to do and instead tells you to figure it out for yourself? And like, I don't know, can you? It's definitely an option on the table. So that's adapting. Compromising is going to the person and saying, I understand the way that you're trying to work. And I think I see what you're trying to do here. Can we work together? Can you give me some help? Can I ask your advice on this? Hey, I understand this is important. Can you help me understand why this is the approach that you want to take, just so I can be supportive? Okay. Would it be possible for us to compromise a little bit just so that I'm able to spend more time with the patients or do X, Y, or Z? And that's compromise. And again, it's putting on our big boy pants or our big girl pants and having the conversation. And again, this is not going to go well if you have 15 things that you're mad about. And then the last one is you can leave. And I don't know where we really are here. There's a lot of sort of emotion in this. But if you have a new boss and you have gone to the practice owner, practice leadership, and you said, I am really unhappy. This is not working for me. And they said, well, that's what it is. They have the right to tell you that is what it is. They can tell you that. And then you can do with that information what you want to do with it, but you always have options. And so I understand it's not as easy as popping down the road maybe to get a different job. I don't know, but it is definitely on the table. So you are not trapped and you are not powerless. So it really does. At some point when we have an imperfect boss, you can adapt, you can compromise, or you can leave.
It's funny because I think we had the same three, but calling it different ways. But I think about when I just read this, I could feel a lot of the feelings that they were feeling. And immediately empathized, just as a human being, because it was very clear to me that they are in protection mode and they're frustrated, they're angry, they're like, I could feel a bunch of different emotions. And the reality is when we're feeling strongly like that, sometimes that's how I show up at therapy. And my therapist asks me the same question every time. And it shouldn't surprise me by now. Like,
okay, I'm ready. I have my pen written down. I'm ready to write this down. Now.
But I get asked the same question and it always surprises me because I'm just like, it always shocks me out of that feeling, that place of feeling. And they ask me, what can you control in this situation?
Yes.
And it is such a simple question, but the reality is it every single time, without fail, it forces me to think about what here do I actually have control over? Because the reality is I can only actually do something about something that I have control over. I can feel whatever feelings I want to feel, but it's not going to change the situation unless any one facet of it I actually have control over. And so to our writer, I think the question is, what can you control here? And then come up with a plan, because I think you could action plan this, but only if you actually could say, well, these are the things that I have control over, because they're doing all of this work and they're working together and they're going around this person. And to what end? Because are you actually in control of any of that? Or are you just spinning your wheels and creating more frustration for yourself? So I think about then, like when I have had this conversation, then it usually goes, okay, there's 3 paths here. Like I love this because even though there may be negativity felt or associated with any one of these paths, they really are founded in strong positive psychology, which is, look, you can stay. And to your point, you can accept it. You can stay. And if you stay, in order to stay and be a healthy, well-balanced person, you have to set some boundaries. And you've got to figure out how to set boundaries, or it is going to affect you significantly. You can stay and you can change your relationship or your role within the system. That's another choice, is say, okay, I'm going to stay here, but I'm going to go back to just being a tech and I'm going to take care of my patients. I'm going to take care of my clients. I'm just not going to care. You're in control of that and you could choose to do that. That's your changing process. And the last one is you can leave, and leaving doesn't have to be steeped in negativity. And that's the one that I think a lot of us just feel so guilty about, because as a industry, so many of us have so much personal sense of self tied up in our career and our jobs and what we do, that for a lot of us, when it comes to the idea of leaving a clinic, we feel so guilty. But the reality is, leaving to protect your well-being and the meaning of your work and the purpose for you is totally understandable. And I would say admirable. Like sometimes we have to make changes that are the right thing for us. I honestly never thought that I would leave Uncharted. Like I thought that Uncharted was going to be the place that I work forever. I loved what I did. I loved who I got to do it with. And I got to a point where I want to grow in a way that I can't right now, right here. And so what do? I can stay and I can change things. I can adapt. Or I can do the thing that feels scary, and I can leave. And in that moment, I spent multiple therapy sessions talking through, how do I do this? What do I do? And a lot of that fear was around, if I leave and I fail. And the question that I got posed, and the one that really challenged me, is, what if you leave and you succeed? What could that look like? And that was a really powerful tool to me to think about, like, okay, how do I snap my brain out of that cycle of panic and leaving is a bad thing? And how do I step outside of that and think about what happens if I do leave to, in this person's case, to protect their well-being and their mental health? All 3 are powerful, empowered choices. You have control of every single one of those choices. And I will say, it is painful to hear, but not making a choice is still choosing. And so you can only control what you can control here. And I think that's, for me, that was really like the only headspace that I could come up with that felt productive, because so much of this mailbag was not in this person's control. And we could sit here and spend 3 hours creating a hypothetical podcast, but without knowing what the middle ground was and what the controllables were, I don't think there's anything that we could say that would be effective for anyone.
I think that there's definitely ways that we can kind of work on this. And I think we should, I do want to get into action steps.
Same.
And I think just to really just summarize our time in Camp Tough Love before we take a break, what here can you control? Every boss is imperfect. If you've got 15 problems with somebody, I think we need to think about why are we having this reaction. So anyway, that's it for me.
Let's take a break. Cool.
So action steps, I think you called out the first one really nicely. We're going to need to do some self-work, I think. Go for a hike, meditate, do some yoga, and practice not self-love, but love for my fellow man. And really push yourself to assume good intent. This person, and again, our writer did a good job of saying, this person's really inexperienced. I'm like, great. Have you ever been inexperienced? Did you know what that was like? Did you ever feel pressure? What if this person is terrified that they're failing? Like, we never know what people are really going through. Whatever sort of mental gymnastics you have to do to feel okay about this person and to try to say, this is okay. I believe that they believe they're doing their best. I believe that they are trying to help the practice. I really believe that. I might not agree with how they're trying to do it, but I do believe that they are trying to help the practice and they're trying to do a good job. Let's get some positivity. And then as soon as we can do that, for me, it's a root cause analysis exercise, right? This is digging into why is this person affecting me? What are they really doing? And this is just good advice for anyone who has a difficult boss. You will always look bad if you go and you say, there's 5 things that she does that bother me. And you go, there's probably 2 or 3 things. And they manifest in different ways that irritates you 10 different ways. And that's really important for when I said, hey, if there's 15 things about this person that make you nuts, it's a you problem. I'm not saying those 15 things don't exist. They're probably 1 or 2 things that are aspects of their personality or their philosophy or their worldview that are manifesting out in a lot of different ways. So, for example, if someone is my boss and they are wildly disorganized, that's going to make me angry when my schedule is not the way that it should be. It's going to make me angry when I did not get important information I was supposed to get about, new policy changes. It's going to make me frustrated when they don't show up for our one-on-one meeting that we scheduled. And those all feel like different things, and they're all very legitimate things to be angry about. But if I went and I say, she didn't show up for this, and she didn't send me an email about that, and then she said she would do this, and she didn't, then I feel like I'm not going to get taken seriously. But if I go and I say, she has a significant problem with organization, and I think some examples are of how that problem manifests, and then I can give you 15 examples of how disorganization is affecting our ability to work effectively together, that's not something I think that gets blown off. That is a piece of feedback with significant data points supporting it. And so I hope to bring this back around, that if I had our reader feeling like they were being judged, I don't mean for you to feel that way. But I do think that this is a really important part of being heard, especially in a larger organization. This is what giving feedback up the chain looks like, and also giving feedback on other employees. Like, this is a good way to do that. Remember to criticize the behavior and not the intent or the person. She's not a jerk. It's not that she doesn't care. There are other reasons that are causing these behaviors. It might be that this person has a much more hands-off management style than your previous leader did. That's not bad. It's different. You might say, I don't like a hands-off management 100%. Style. I want to have a lot of interaction. And again, I've had employees who very much wanted to be left alone. And I have had employees who wanted to talk every day. And, and they're bad. It's different. And the people who wanted to be left alone, they were a little bit uncomfortable because I was not willing to completely leave them alone. And the people who want to talk every day were a little bit disappointed because I did not have time to talk every day, and so we all have to kind of work on that, but we compromise in both cases, and I felt like they came to that.
I think we all know which one I was out of those 2.
Yes, Stephanie Goss, the loner.
Leave me alone in my office.
That's right. Don't call me.
No, I love that. I think for me, when I think about the headspace of what can I control, like one of the healthy action steps, I think, is also to do some self-reflection, like you were saying, and look at what can you own in this situation and what can you not own? Because there are pieces of this letter that I think this technician, there are things absolutely outside of their control from what they said. If we take it at face value and we believe everything that they said is true, which is, there's always at least two sides to every story, and the truth is usually somewhere in the middle. And so, but assuming that everything has gone exactly how they said, there are things that they have had no control over. And so naming those things and looking at the scenario and saying, okay, these are things that I don't have control over, but also things that are out of my ownership. Like, I have nothing to actually do with this. This is not on me. I also think, and this is the really hard personal work, is looking at this. And when you're pointing a finger at someone else, there are at least four other fingers most of the time pointing back at you. And so this is where I think you have to name the things that you can own here. And have you done everything that you can, to your point, to assume good intent, right? Like, have you set this leader up to fail, or have you set them up to succeed? Have you been on board? Have you been willing to be their cheerleader? Have you been willing to change your attitude? Like, those are all questions that are really hard to answer, because a lot of the times, when we get frustrated, angry, sad, emotional, extremely emotional, we don't act as our best selves. And that's not good or bad. It just is who we are as human beings. And so if you can do the work to look at what can you own here, I think it will go a long way in terms of figuring out the action steps to help you get out of this situation in a way that feels a little bit more healthy and hopefully healing than not.
I think you're spot on. I always start with that. What is it that's actually truly bothering you, and trying to root cause that down? I think that's what you control probably the most, really, is first thing you got to do is dive in. And you might come up with something that is not going to be an easy fix, like the lack of organization, for example. This person is probably not going to just get organized. But at least if you know that, then you can know what you're dealing with. It's the difference in treating a case and you're just battling symptoms versus understanding what's going on. You still might have to deal with symptoms, right? Like that diabetic cat is still going to urinate outside the box. But at least we know why it's happening, and we have some idea of how to sort of approach these things. And so I think that that's really big. And then once you know what's bothering you, the question to ask yourself, and this is very similar to Stephanie's, what power do you have here, is what are your options to address this? And that's when, again, this is a big thing about do your meditation, do your breathing. You do not want to go into this with an emotional reaction. Like, do not snatch the flaming, raging sword of justice. I know what I'll do about it. Shing. Yeah, I've got taken heads. This will not stand. You can be righteous or effective. Choose which one. I find that to be true again and again. And so, once you kind of know what's bothering you, really kind of what's bothering you, and then once you have thought about what your options are, the last thing for me, I think, is probably like, what are your needs? And what are your asks? And so when I say, what are you going to do about it? That does not mean suck it up. Like, that's a part of it. Some of it is going to be, you're probably going to have to suck up some of it. I promise you, it's not going to swap and you're going to be blissfully happily. You're going to suck up some of it. But what do you need to be successful, given that this person has this philosophy, this management style, this worldview, these other issues that they're juggling, a lack of capacity, a lack of time, whatever is going on? What do you need? What can you ask for? And then maybe you're asking the practice owner, maybe you're asking this person, but just say, hey, I understand that you're sort of approaching it this way, and I respect that. Can you let me know about these specific things as early as possible so that I can do X, Y, and Z? Can you help me get the other technicians together so that we can make some decisions about how we want to work together so that this doesn't come down on you and be the thing you have to deal with? But like, the smarter you can be about what your needs are and what your asks are, the more productive you can be in this situation, and the better your chance are of getting to a really good place. And again, I hope that if you go through all of these things, you are growing as a person, you are growing as a leader. This is a lot about reining in emotion and getting clarity about behaviors, and then root cause analysis. What's the underlying driver of these behaviors? And then thinking about what your options are to address those underlying drivers, and what do you need, and what are your options, and what are your asks, and how do you get those things for yourself?
I love that. For me, I'm going to get real vulnerable and candid for a minute, because I have gone through more than one period of deep depression and burnout in my veterinary career. I've been doing this for 22 years. And in reading this person's email, there were lots of things that, regardless of whether they have seen a professional and they really are burned out or not, I'm not going to try and hazard a guess on that, but they're clearly struggling deeply because they care about their job and they care about what they're doing. And they also sound deeply unhappy. And so from that place, like, that resonated with me, because I have been there. And what I found was that I was really depressed and I was really struggling. And as a result, I became, not intentionally, but I very unintentionally became a very toxic team member in one period in particular, because everything that I looked at was negative, because I was in not a dissimilar situation in the sense that I was really struggling with a boss. I was really, really frustrated. And so, to your point, everything I found about that person was wrong. And so I was that person who was, could list 15 or 20 things that were wrong with that person, because every interaction to me was negative, even the positive ones. And so one of the things that I had to teach myself through getting support and getting help and therapy was, I really started looking at it not dissimilar to this person, where I went to the extremes, not should I leave veterinary medicine, but like all or nothing thinking of like, it's me or them. I'm going to have to leave this place. There's no other option. And my therapist spent a lot of time asking me questions about veterinary medicine and what I loved about it. And it took a while, because in the beginning, my answers were, I would get asked, what was something good that happened at the clinic today? And I would say, absolutely nothing. It was all horrible. Like, they're a horrible person. Like, and all I could think about was the negative things, because I was just I was mired in that place. And there was lots of pushings and lots of sessions where I was just like, there was nothing good about today. And then one day I don't know whether it was the patient or something, but it like popped to my head that I had a good patient interaction. And I was able to say like, okay, I had this case right before I came here, and this is what happened. And it made me smile. And I guess that was a good thing about the day. And it was the first time that I was able to kind of snap myself out of that. And then going forward from there, what we did was really work to build like micro resilience rituals for me. And so I had a series of things that I would try and do with myself. And ultimately now I have learned to apply these to the team, because the work we do is hard. It's really hard. There are, even when we love our jobs, when we love our team, some days the reality is we go to work, we put to sleep more than half the patients we see in a day, or we see horrific things that happen to patients by no faults of their own or their owners. And it is really hard to deal with that. And so part of our work as leaders is to help the team develop that grit and resiliency so that they don't get mired in that place of negativity. And so things like, and it's not big things. It's not some big, we're going to all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. It's really the little things of like, well, what was one meaningful patient interaction that you had today? It's not even telling me about a positive thing that happened. It was, what's one thing that had meaning for you in terms of your patient interactions today? Did you pet a puppy today? Did you pet a kitten today? Did you get to hold an old dog's paw while you said goodbye with its owner? Like, what was something that gave you meaning and purpose? What are things that you appreciate or have gratitude about towards your team members? Like, you're here today, in the middle of everything with your peers. What do you like about each other? Why do you keep showing up together? Especially for this person who is feeling so negative about one person, it can start with thinking about people you do like. What do you like about them? What do you find positive about them? Because it just moves your brain one step closer to having some positive chemicals going on. And that's sometimes all the shift that it takes. And sometimes you need professional help. Sometimes you need medications. I went through periods where I needed both. And so I think thinking about those things, thinking about like, what is done at the end of today look like? If I make a to-do list, I often end the day feeling disappointed in myself because I can't remember the last time I actually accomplished my to-do list in a day. Because I always put too much shit on it that I'm going to get done. But if I say, what's going to make me feel good about walking away from my desk at the end of the day, I could make a smaller list and I could maybe hit my goals of that list and I could maybe feel successful at the end of the day. And sometimes it's just about freaking breathing because we are really bad in breathing in veterinary medicine. And it wasn't until I started to do some of this self-work and like really learn, I am really bad at breathing. Really bad. And it's that simple thing of like, okay, take 90 seconds to like really take a deep breath. And because my therapist would ask me that, when's the last time you took a deep breath? I don't actually know. And then when you do take a deep breath and you really feel what it feels like to like truly fill your lungs and feel it in your belly, it feels radically different. Those are just such tiny little things, but they're things that can make a big difference. They're not going to be the cure-all. This is not toxic positivity. This is not saying that if I think about one good patient interaction, it's going to snap me out of clinical depression, because that's not truth.
Right.
But it is still something that I can do to make a baby step towards thinking in a positive way. And that positivity helps me build that resilience and grit that I need to get through to the other side. Because no matter what this person does, they have to do some hard work, either to decide that they're going to stay and they're going to change and adapt, or decide that they're going to leave. And ultimately, both of those paths are going to be difficult paths. So figure out how to protect that joy and like break some of that stress for yourself.
I like that a lot. Roy Jane is the COO at Blue River Pet Care, and he was on the podcast earlier this year. And it wasn't on the podcast, but it was just us talking around that time. But he told me positivity is my religion. And we've talked about it a couple times since then. He was like, no, I meant it when I said that. Like, that's how I think about it, is positivity is my religion. And I really like how he said that, because if you think about religion, and I think how religion is truly supposed to be, religion is not supposed to be easy, right? It is faith and commitment and sacrifice and doing things when you would rather not do them. Like, that is what, in my mind, that is what a religious commitment is like. And so it's not a fun, glamorous, do what you want. It is that there is a dedication to living a life. And so when he says positivity is my religion, I took him at a literal word on this. But I do like that in to say that medicine is hard. Life is hard. Life, like I talked to a friend today who just found out that his mother was just like earlier today diagnosed with a surprisingly severe cancer. And he was like, we thought maybe something was going on, but we didn't think it was anything like this. And it was, I spent time sort of talking to him, and life's not fair and life is hard. And so positivity as a religion, like it's not easy. It's the default state. One of my personal mantras is that life is what we focus on. And I say that to myself all the time. Life is what we focus on. It's you can choose. And again, I like that you called out sort of toxic positivity. I'm not saying ignore the fact that you're unhappy and your boss is very challenging to work with, but also you get to choose how much you dwell on that fact versus going on and deciding what are the things that are not frustrating in your time. And it's funny. It's one of the things I wrestle with a lot in sort of our modern world. I think that we're all plugged in and so sort of stimulated and distracted, that a lot of times we're distracted by things that they're not pleasant, they're not, rewarding or positive things. And so I think a lot of us just swim around in kind of a toxic soup all day long. And to Roy's point about positivity as a religion, I mean, I think we almost have to have a dedication to say, these things are real, and I'm not discounting them. I'm not discounting the fact that they don't exist. But through force of will and a selection of my environment and a change in my mindset, I'm going to try to set them down and focus on what the positive is. And I think that you can do that and also decide that you want to leave your job. You can do both of those things. And so they are not mutually exclusive.
Because I think we're going to have the last same step. I think my second to last step, it goes similarly to the one that I just talked about. But I think it is to call out the fact that groupthink is wildly impactful. And emotions are emotions are contagious.
Yes.
And the reality is, from what this writer said, there's a group of technicians that are all feeling very similar feelings. That multiplies and amplifies the emotions, both positive and negative, tenfold. And so if you are going to work every day, you might be feeling okay today. But if somebody else in the group is feeling like, screw her, she's a horrible, manager, like I don't want to be here, that feeling is immediately contagious. And so when we have that shared identity as a group of peers that we really believe we are, want to be valued technicians in this practice. We want to practice with integrity. We want to practice good medicine. We want to take care of these patients, which I could feel that same passion from this person in their letter. Then you have to think about, how do I use that shared identity for empowerment and not disempowerment? Because right now you're all allowing yourselves to disempower each other in that groupthink behavior.
Yeah.
And so part of it is figuring out, how do we use language and change the language so that it becomes strength building with each other, even if you just do it with each other, to think things like, we are going to be consistent advocates for great patient care at this hospital. We are going to be consistent advocates for team health and well-being. We're going to lead from a place of skill and integrity. We don't care about titles. Like thinking about whatever is the littlest thing that you can give yourself to infuse just a little bit of positivity, even if it's just saying something as simple as, we're going to choose being professional over resentment. Like whatever it is that you need to say to allow the group thought process to change, you got to figure out how to do it, because your path forward is going to be one of those difficult paths. You're either going to stay, and if you stay, you sure as hell better figure out a way to have some boundaries and protect yourself emotionally, or you're going to go. And that path forward, even if it's 2 weeks notice, is still going to be hard. And so figuring out how you can, with your peers, not all drag each other down, I think is very important.
No, I think you're totally right. I think that's a really good call out. And I think we're trying to walk a line here of not, again, I'm not trying to people to suck it up. And also, I want to be honest about the powers that we have and the powers that we don't have.
I think if you are struggling, because I mean, we've dealt with so many mailbags over the years where the answer when we read it is, oh, you should go. So we always have that conversation with each other of, this is going to be the world's shortest podcast.
But I don't know that that's true in this case, right? To me, it seemed very much like it was a hyper focus on this one person. And man, it really feels like such a waste to leave because there's one person in a place that you don't like. That said, if you have a boss that's making you miserable and they have great power over you and you work closely with them on the long term, those things definitely happen all the time. And so I'm not saying that shouldn't happen, but it would be heartbreaking.
And so I think I just want to leave with some questions to help figure out, do I stay and shift, or do I leave and go? And because I think it's important to think about your purpose and why are you here? And so again, thinking about the things you can control. Am I still able to act from a place of purpose in this practice? Like at its heart, my purpose is for the patients and our clients. Yes, it's for my team as well, but am I able to act with purpose, or am I only able to act with resentment when I'm here? I think that will give you some clarity. Asking yourself, can I grow here, or am I just shrinking here? Does coming to work fuel my values? Does it fill my cup, or does it totally drain them? Now, I would say right now in the moment, they're feeling very drained. But to your point, are they only drained because of this one person? Is everything else great and you're just looking at that one thing as negative? Yeah. Because if that's the case, then the answer might be to figure out, what does thriving here look like? And that again is a question about control, because you're not the practice owner and you can't change the fact that this person has the title. But what you can do is change the way that you act, the way you show up, and the way you do your job. Because ultimately, it didn't sound to me like this person is asking them to do their job other than asking them, what do you want to do? And so I wouldn't mind being asked that question. If you're going to ask me, then I'm going to go and do the thing. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
So how do you feel grounded in your purpose? What are the things that light you on fire about veterinary medicine? Even if you have to think outside of your current practice, think about why you started and why you continue, why you keep doing it. And that, I think, will help you make conscious choices and not just survival decisions. Because if you're just looking at it from the place of, I hate this chick that's our new leader, you're going to be making a survival decision, and you may feel good about it in the end, but you also may regret it. And so the way that you I think kind of try and avoid that is ask yourself questions that are going to help you figure out, am I consciously making this choice? Have I really thought this through? Can I thrive here or not? Or am I just reacting in survival mode?
I think that's really the final question, right? Can I be here? To me, a lot of it comes down to, once you do your root cause analysis, what is the underlying issue? And then once you look at that, then we can have some real thoughts about
how to plan.
What does this mean? How do we plan? How much do I care about this? Is this a thing that annoys me, or is this a thing that's really impacting my ability to work? How good am I at acceptance?
Totally.
Once I kind of understand what's driving the issue. So anyway, I think that's it. But yeah, I think that's what I got. I hope this has been helpful for a writer. I hope it's helpful for anybody who's having some conflict with their boss. I think this is a good headspace episode overall. But yeah, thanks for talking
this was fun. Take care, everyone. Have a great week.
Take care, everybody. And that's what we got. Guys, thanks for being here. If you have a question for our mailbag, please send it to podcast@unchartedvet.com. That's podcast@unchartedvet.com. And gang, I will talk to you later.